All right, Madam Chair. It's okay if I run through the agenda real quick, or you want me to let you get settled with your food for a
I
second?
think we can start right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, just briefly, item number one, we are going to hear. That was deferred back in June, and that's a new detached garage on North 7th Street. Item number two is a deferral. So requesting deferral until the August 28th meeting for item number two. That's on the Eastman Street. Item number three, also requesting deferral to August 28th on Crawl. Item number four, on North 18th Street. This was deferred last month to allow the applicant to get some more information. We will hear that one briefly. Item number five on North 10th Street for the facade renovation and of the local landmark building. We will hear that item. Item number six is on North 13th Street, and is to enclose a patio on an existing building and construct a new addition. We will hear that item as well. Item number seven on West Franklin to construct a new single-family residence. We will hear that item also. And finally, item number eight on North 17th for an addition to an existing residence. We will recommending deferral to August 28th for that one as well. So no consent items,
Okay.
3 deferrals, and here are the rest.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Start if ready.
Thank you. We are a citizen volunteer appointed by the mayor and approved by city council. We make final decisions on certificate of appropriateness applications. Any decisions made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if an applicant agrees with staff report and there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago: a staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call roll?
Pape.
Here.
Koski. Maroney.
Here.
Montoto.
Here.
Malloy.
Here.
Otter.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. I don't have the sign up sheets yet thank you. We don't have anything for the consent agenda tonight. So can I get a motion to approve the June 26th minutes?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Montoto.
I move to approve the meeting minutes from the June 26th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pape. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Otter.
Abstain.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. We do have several items hoping to be deferred tonight. The first item is DRH 23-00121. This is item number 2 on the agenda. It is at 2123 West Eastman Street, an appeal of the administrative denial of a certificate of appropriateness to allow vinyl windows on the property. Excellent, thank you. Is there anybody here tonight wishing to testify in opposition of this item? Anybody online? No? All right, so we'll go ahead and, okay, so nobody's here. So if I could get a motion to move that to the August 28th meeting.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Montoto.
I move to defer item number 2, DRH 23-00121 to the August 28th, 2023 hearing.
Thank you. Can I get a second? I'll second. Thanks, Commissioner Otter. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item up for deferral tonight is item number 3, DRH 23-00122. And it is at 116 East Crawl Street, certificate of appropriateness to construct 3 single-family homes on a consecutive substandard lots. Is there anybody here wanting to testify that could not return on August 28th? Anybody online? No? All right, if I can get a motion to defer this to August 28th.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Otter,
I move to defer DRH 23-00122 to August 28th.
thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto,
Abstain.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And the last item is item number 8, DRH 23-00226. And this is at 1515 North 17th Street, a certificate of appropriateness to construct an addition to an existing single-family residence and add a detached garage with an ADU above on the property. Is there anybody wishing to testify on this item that cannot return on August 28th? Online? All right, it looks like Holly Mitchell.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, hi. I'm the owner of that property. I'm here on Zoom.
Okay, can you return, it looks like you're asking for deferral. Can you return to the meeting on August 28th?
Oh, yes, I can. Absolutely. I was here the previous hearing. I just had some audio issues, but yes, if it needs to be deferred, I can show up then as well.
If you can hold on for just 1 second.
We have a broccoli having tons of last.
Miss Mitchell, do you know can you give me the address of the item you're here for?
Yeah, can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay, it was 709 West Eastman was the original address of this home. I've been trying to get approval for this now for, it's been 2 years. I was told to move the front door, which is why the address has changed to what you're seeing, which, off the top of my head, the new address to what you just said is 17, forgive me, I'm drawing a blank on the new address because we moved the front door from facing Eastman to facing 7th Street.
Street.
So
Okay.
yep, that might be some of the confusion that you might be
Okay.
sifting through right now.
So you actually you're not being deferred. This one is the deferral is on 17th Street. You're going to be our first agenda item tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'll talk to you in like 2
Thank
minutes.
you,
if
I
that's okay.
understand.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So is anybody here wishing to testify on DRH 23-00226? This is at 1515 North 17th Street. It looks like nobody in our audience or our online audience. Fantastic. If I can get a motion to defer this to the August 28th meeting, please.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Montoto.
I move to defer item DRH 23-00226 to the August 28th, 2023 hearing.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move onto our new business. The first item that we're hearing tonight is DRH 23-00048. This was deferred from our June 26th meeting. It's at 1721 North 7th Street, a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new detached garage with an ADU above on the property. Staff, can we please get the report?
I can. As you say, this is at that address, 1712 North 7th Street, and they want to build this new detached garage with an ADU above. And it is now with a change we heard a little bit about in the previous communication. This is now at the rear of the property based on an address changing. And here's the site plan to give you a context of where it's located within the district. And here is the existing site showing the existing house and the existing garage. And there are site plans to give you an indication of its location as relates to the house. Provided here are the elevations. And our analysis is that since the residential historic district guidelines state that new construction in a historic district should not overwhelm neighboring structures in height, they should remain within a similar range found within the vicinity of the neighboring properties. Now, this existing home is a one-story building that is 15 feet 2. What they're proposing is 21 feet 3, which is a full 6 feet 1 inches taller than the residence itself. And many adjacent houses, though, however, staff noticed that next door there is a residence with an addition that abuts the alley that is a full 2 stories, probably taller than this house. And that across the alley, there are 1.5 and 2-story garages and additions that abut that alley. And the height, therefore, we saw that the height is appropriate, given the adjoining and nearby structures heights are similar. Standard 9 says that the Secretary Standard 9 says that new construction should be compatible with historic materials, feature, size, scale, and proportion and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. We feel, as demonstrated above, that this proposed construction is of a compatible size, scale, and proportion and massing of nearby buildings, especially ancillary buildings. And therefore, we feel in this unique instance, it does meet the standards. And with that, staff is going to recommend approval.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for staff? No, thanks. We'll now hear from the applicant who is online.
Hello, hi, I'm here.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. We can hear you.
Thank you. I guess this is wonderful news. I'm glad to hear this. So let me know what you need on my end.
We need your name and address, and you have 20 minutes to tell us about your project. So this is the staff recommending approval, and then we'll make a decision about the project after hearing from you and the neighborhood association and anybody present online or in person who wants to talk. So first, your name and address, please.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Holly Mitchell. And it's the 1721 7th Street, North 7th Street, Boise, Idaho. I purchased this home about 4 years ago. It's a great little corner lot. To your point, there's a lot of large towering homes that have been added additions, and I've had a 1-car garage on this lot. So my hope is to, obviously, this home is a very small house on a very large corner lot. And I wanted to build additional space as well as additional garage parking. That being said, I've hired a local architect. We've been through multiple modifications to meet the historic district standards, in addition to moving the front door of the original house. Due to historic, I guess that the front door was originally on 7th Street, and through modifications since I believe the house was built, if I'm recalling right, late 1950s. It was originally, it was then moved to Eastman. So they recommended we move the door to 7th Street, which I did, invested obviously a lot of financial funds to do that. And we have lowered the AD unit over the course of at least three, maybe even 4 modifications to meet the requirements and the feedback that we've gotten back from the historic district. Also, I personally have gone to every neighbor surrounding me, giving them the drawings and having them sign off, and also in support, because everything that I want to do is going to be extremely tasteful and matching, and will absolutely enhance the curb appeal and existing curb appeal. I want to match the house as it stands today, is my goal. So the 2 units look very similar and complement each other. With that said, I don't really have anything else to add. I'm just excited to, like I said, I've been at this for at least 2 years now. And I'm hopeful to actually break ground and make some improvements in the North End.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Do we have any questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, you'll have a chance to rebuttal in just a minute. Do we have the neighborhood association present and wanting to testify on this item? If you can state your name and address, please.
There we go.
There it is.
Sandra Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Madam Chair, committee members. Nina HPC does not support this project at this time. We are concerned about the height of this ADU, given the 6-foot delta between it and the single-story house. This property sits on a corner on a hill and is easily visible in the neighborhood. Similar projects with single-story homes wanting overly tall ADUs in the neighborhood have been denied. We are worried that this will be used as an example of inconsistency in applying the guidelines. The house next door to this property on the south sits way back on the lot, immediately next to the alley and close to the northern property line. And I did take a bunch of pictures, and they should be in your packet. The 2-story ADU proposed would sit snugly next to this house and possibly block windows. This might create privacy issues as well. We had a little bit of difficulty communicating with this applicant. Last week, there were no signs posted for the project, and we aren't sure how aware the neighbors are about the project. It's my understanding that this has been deferred a few times, so maybe there were signs up at another time, but I didn't see them last week. Garages on the north end of the alley near this project are all single-story. On the south end of the alley are 3 ADUs, and across the street on Eastman is another 2-story single-car ADU. All of these are dormer style, 2-story or 1.5 stories. One of the ADUs belongs to a very tall single-story house on 8th Street. This ADU is quite short to my estimation, around 16 feet tall, barely visible from 8th Street, and does not appear to be taller than the house. The other 2 ADU style garages on the alley both have 2-story houses and adhere to the height limits. As always, we request permeable paving and downshielded lighting, and we would like to remind all applicants that any changes in materials stated in the agreed upon application need to be approved by the city. Not doing so could result in remediation at the contractor or homeowner's expense.
Thank you. Um. All right, were there any questions from the commission for the neighborhood association? No? Okay. I'll go to the sign up sheet and we do not have anyone signed up. Is there anyone who didn't sign up but would like to testify? No one in the room, anyone online? Doesn't look like it. Okay. So applicant, you are welcome to rebut and address some of the things Nina brought up if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that a couple points that I would like to make is when the home that's to the south of me where the addition has been built, that was the house, the 2-story was an addition built onto the house. And they do not have garage parking. And then also when you look to the north on A Street, there is an ADU, correct? It's a one-car garage and then the ADU on top, which is taller than what I'm proposing to build. And going back to the analysis of the historic district, given that it is compatible with the historic materials that have been defined, and we've taken that into consideration as we have, put these plans together multiple times to meet the requirements. And the features and size to scale is absolutely in proportion with what is on this block. And to what was just said, it is a nice size piece of property, and there is plenty of room to build this small accommodation, and it, especially the way that we are hoping to design it. So in effect, in the end, it will only enhance the North End district, and obviously enhance much my quality of living. This is a large lot. My house is not even 1,300 square feet. And this space is absolutely critical. I had a 1-car garage that was beaten down with dirt flooring on it, and I'm just trying to make an improvement for what I hope to live in the North End for many, many years to come. So I'd really appreciate this being considered as I'm putting. This isn't a lipstick on a pig kind of project, if I may say. I mean, I'm wanting to do this first class and keeping it very cohesive. And if you look at the house and the pictures of my, I call it the bungalow, it's everything I've done is incredibly tasteful. So I would like this to be considered. In addition, the only thing I will add too is working over the past couple years with the historic district. I have taken every feedback they've given me through this process and have made accommodations, and have also gotten approvals from, there has been signs, you're correct, it was not last week, this was done last year, posting signs and getting signatures of all the approvals we needed. It's just been a long process. So I would really like this project to be considered.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Can I ask a question quick? On the
Sure.
plan, which way does you said you moved the front door, so it's not facing Eastman anymore, or it is?
It is not. My address used to be 709 West Eastman, and it is now the front door, because of the historic district, after these hearings 2 years ago, said that my front door needed to go back to the original position, which apparently was on 7th Street. And now my house, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit awkward. You see the house or the front door positioned towards 7th Street, and I had to rebuild a walkway for it. So, and that again was feedback in order to get this approved.
Okay, so the.
And I
path-
spent over,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, you can.
The cost of moving the front door was $10,000. It was 9,000 and some change. And you know, and even then we said that it aesthetically and what made sense, the house looked adorable coming out on Eastman and facing the houses across the street. So even then it didn't make any sense, but it was more important to have the space. So obviously we did it in hopes to build this. We've got a lot invested in it.
Okay. Sorry, just so I'm clear, the path comes up off of Eastman and then but the door opens towards 7th Street.
That is correct.
Okay. Sorry, I was just trying to figure
Yeah.
everything out.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. I will go ahead and we'll close the hearing, the public portion of it, and we'll render a decision. So if I can have discussion or a motion.
Can I start with a question for staff?
Sure.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Josh or Richard, can you speak to the proper noticing for an item that's been deferred for and I guess reference to this application, it sounds like there was not proper signage.
It's my understanding that there was signposting for the initial, I think it was March when this was first heard and then deferred, and then now we're here. So there is seems to be a record of a posting then. I spoke with the applicant and they said as much.
So it's not required for an applicant to post. It's not.
Yeah, you don't have to keep
Okay.
on reposting and reposting as deferrals happen. If you
Okay.
posted on the initial attempt, let's say, then you're posted for however long deferrals last.
Okay, thank you.
And I have one more question for staff. So you asked them to move the door to face 7th or what?
That precedes me, but
Okay,
Madam Chair, I think that even precedes me. So we could
Okay.
do some looking and see what happened a couple years ago.
Madam Chair, I looked into the project report a little bit and it seems like there's a little bit of history there. It looks like that item has a DRH 21 number. So it must have been done 2 years ago, which I think would chalk up to what the applicant said. And originally the house seemed to have a 1910 construction date. And it had a 17, I believe it was 1719 or 1721 7th Street address. At some point in the mid 50s, they shifted the front door to Eastman, changed the address. And so there was a certificate of appropriateness granted to move the address back to its original address. It looks like it was in 2021.
right,
Okay.
I think so. And that, of course, now makes that location a rear yard instead of a side yard, which would have
Right.
caused great difficulties in getting any structure approved in a side yard. So that made it become a rear yard and altered the setback requirements therefore.
okay. That was the information I was looking for, why this was related to this project.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Okay, let's move on to discussion and a motion, please.
Madam Chair, I had pulled up our design guidelines, which again are guidelines, not our laws. And I'm having a really hard time finding anything to back up opposing this. I do, and I can understand Nina's reluctance. And I agree with it. I'm just having a hard time being able to back that up per the guidelines.
Any other comments or thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Otter?
I'm going to have to agree with Commissioner Montoto that when I looked at it, it's a non-contributing building and the buildings around it are also tall, within the specs. So there's not a whole lot to tell me that they can't do what they're proposing to do.
Madam Chair, I'll add my comments. I agree, it's not a contributing house. Unfortunately, we haven't had new survey because before it was updated again, it probably would have been a contributing house. What I'm concerned about is all of these 2-story ADUs in the north end and the cumulative effect that they all have on the eligibility of the district overall. So I'm not going to oppose this project, but we need to keep that in mind.
Okay, so can we get a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Otter?
I move to approve DRH 23-00048 with staff's recommendations.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item number 4, DRH 23-00172. This was also deferred from the June 26th meeting. It's at 1401 North 18th Street. Certificate of appropriateness to alter the character defining facade of a property in a single family residential with historic overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Sorry, the deferral threw our numbering off a little bit there. So yeah, this property is at 1401 North 18th Street, and they have requested to modify the primary facade by relocating the front door. You will recall this application from last month. The applicant needed to do some additional research into the original condition of the home. So the commission deferred it to this hearing. Again, the property is northwest corner of Reidenbaugh and North 18th Street. It is a small lot with a small structure on there. So currently the front door faces to the side of a little enclosed alcove on the front of the home. The applicant's supposition was that that door originally faced to the street, and they have proposed to move that front door back to the street. So currently on the floor plan, you can see the front door within that recessed alcove facing to the side and not visible from the front street. The proposal on this proposed elevation would be to face that door back to the front street. The additional research the applicant did find a few items that seemed to suggest that that front door did face the street. There's a number of packets in your photo, and this is the one that shows it the best. It's probably going to be pretty hard to see up here on the screen, but you can certainly see some line, a very much door-shaped outline in the wall, and that would be the wall facing the street, where that front door likely was before. Additionally, the Sanborn map shows that the original configuration of the home had front porches on both sides of that front that were somewhat deeper than. So currently, there are some additions that are built into what was formerly that front porch. Here on the south of this, on the bottom of the screen, there was a closet addition built in that then created that small alcove. The north side of the home also had some construction that was built out and currently contains a bathroom, I believe. So along with that new evidence, Nina submitted some photos of other homes in the north end that certainly appear to be the same style of structure. They were kit homes likely. With that additional information, we do recommend approval. The applicant is here tonight to present some information, and I would stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for staff? No? All right. Now we can hear from the applicant. Name and address, please, and then you have 20 minutes.
Hello, Tiffany King. I live at 1401 North 18th Street. I was able to do a little bit of history diving, I suppose. I went to the State Historical Preservation Office, and did find the Sanborn map that showed that the structure was initially different than it is now. And so as it stands, we would be putting the door essentially back where it used to be, or facing where it used to be. And after seeing the Sanborn map and realizing that my son's closet is an addition to what used to be a porch as well, it all makes a little bit more sense. So we're just really hopeful that we might be able to use that little alcove as a entrance or entryway into our tiny little house.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone representing the neighborhood association that'd like to speak on this item?
Sandra Herman, 1404 North 7th Street, Madam Chair and committee members. The owner, Tiffany King, was very welcoming to Nina, and I met with her immediately after the meeting in June. After reviewing the house in person, it was easy to see that this is a house that, in my estimation, is probably a Kit house or a Sears house, and that there are many examples of it in the neighborhood. There's abundant evidence that the front door used to face the street. What was once either a parlor or a dining room is now a bedroom, and a closet was made in half of the front porch. This house still has amazing charm and original elements, even though it has been severely altered inside. The owners have already done tremendous work to restore much of this property, and we recommend approval. We would like to remind all applicants that any changes in materials stated in their agreed upon application need to be approved by the city, and not doing so could result in remediation for the contractor or the owner's expense. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for the neighborhood association? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone present that's wishing to testify on this item? Nobody in the room? Anybody online? Doesn't appear so. All right. There's nobody on our sign up sheet. Applicant, if you want to rebut, you can. If there's anything you want to add. And if not, that's okay. Okay. Great. With that, I'll close the public portion of the hearing, and we can have some discussion and render a decision. I want to start by saying this is like the dream scenario of somebody like getting feedback and going and doing the research and like figuring out how to make it work. And my heart is just bursting right now. So thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would have to echo that. This is like the most refreshing, ideal situation. And with that, I would love to make a motion. I move to approve DRH 23-00172 based off of staff's recommendations.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Otter.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we will move to item number 5 on the agenda, DRH 23-00181. This is at 215 North 10th Street, certificate of appropriateness to restore the facade and renovate a local landmark building on property in a central business with downtown design review overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
Certainly. Yes, this is the Masonic Temple. It is going to be, or it currently is, in a proposed Lower Main Street commercial historic district that we're in process of working through. And it's classification that brings it to this agenda item is that it is a local landmark. Here's the location and context. The site plan, which is pretty much 100% lot coverage, of course, being commercial. And the first floor plan improvements, kind of giving you call outs for where the storefronts will be and how they'll be modified. And the second floor plan, same kind of thing, just a planned version of what the elevations will show you here in a second. And this is the second floor plan at the, there's going to be like a loft apartment buildings. And you'll see balconies to the right and to the left. And you will see later on in my presentation how that relates to proposed punched opening treatments. There's a section through the stair that exists, and then the transverse section showing how the lofts will be within that second floor. At this point, take a special note of the fact that you'll see the height of the loft to the right is approximately the same as the height of the parapet. Therefore, by writ of perspective lines and how you experience this from the street, that's not going to be visible at all. There's no way you could be able to see that. The existing elevation, so you can see how a lot of the material you see on the storefronts is recent infill or reasonably recent infill. And their goal is to restore the storefronts as faithfully as possible with some modifications based on historical pictorial evidence, and a historic photo will be shown later on. And as you can see, here's the proposed. They're going to have a storefront system with transom windows. The transom are only slightly different than the historic photograph showed. The pattern is a slight modification, but staff feels that it's a very faithful, and since there is no historic fabric remaining, it's a very faithful interpretation based on historic documentation. And definitely, as you saw, and we've all seen this building, it is definitely an improvement to the existing condition. The windows are going to be removed to the right side here, where the Masonic Temple has been and was originally built, to my knowledge, to serve that purpose. The lower story was automobile dealership, to the best of my recollection of the history. And the Masonic Temple was always there. So those punch openings are going to be removed. And on this elevation, they're going to be replaced with windows. Otherwise, this space really doesn't have a good function in the upstairs, and we want to see build up of upper stories in the commercial districts. These are the other elevations, and this is the elevation of the other end of the Masonic Temple, where the well, they're currently bricked in, and there were historically bricked in openings will be removed, and balconies will be put in their place to give that balcony or railing will be put into place to give the balcony access, for the lofts. And this is an elevation that never had windows historically, was brick. So it allows for some flexibility for what is being proposed, and therefore staff felt that this is appropriate. The opposite side is the alley adjacent to the Empire Building, if I have my landmarks correctly. And so there's little to no visibility there. That was historically windows, but given its location, you got to be going up or down the alley to really experience that. Whoa. Craziness with the slide. Sorry. A little boo-boo there. I don't know what happened. Well, anyway, there's the historic photo. There was supposed to be a little bit more there, but something happened with my look at this on the fly. There you go. So these are the perspectives and the the existing image, the original photo showing the Packard or whichever dealership it was, and a comparison of another project that the firm had worked on at Twin Falls, a very similar Masonic Temple. So they have experience working on these kinds of projects for sure, and it shows. Site photos to give you an idea of the building as it currently stands and in its context of adjacent buildings. And as you'll see, the design guidelines state that storefronts can be recreated if there's sufficient physical, pictorial, architectural evidence. In this case, physical and architectural weren't there, but there was pictorial. So we feel that they have used that as a basis for the design. And there have been a few modifications that differentiate them, as I mentioned before, slightly from historic, but given that there's no remnant, we felt that this was an okay compromise of, especially as how the transoms look, is perfectly acceptable to make a minor modification. And the portion that was historically housed in Masonic Lodge, as was said, never had those operable windows, and the openings we feel for these balconies are okay because of that. And Another key element of the work here that's being proposed is masonry cleaning and repairs, and the applicant spelled out very clearly how they will follow our guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards, which our guidelines are based off of. And the language they gave is sufficient, and I've added conditions to really beef up that the best treatment is done, especially as regards to cleaning masonry and not overdoing it, gentle cleaning, and certain parameters that need to be met in that aspect. And so with that, we feel that this work is appropriate and staff recommends approval. I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff at this time?
I have a question for staff. Can you outline our role since it's a local landmark versus in a current historic district?
To my knowledge, that's correct.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Malloy. So yeah, you're right. It's not in a historic district. It's in a design review overlay. But what our ordinance says is that local landmarks come to the Historic Preservation Commission for any major modifications or demolition proposed. So your role is essentially, as on a certificate of appropriateness, is to approve the modifications that are proposed, and that's part of our process.
Thank you, Josh. Other questions? No? All right. With that, we'll hear from the applicant. If you can step forward and state your name and address, please. And then you have 20 minutes.
My name is Drew Farwell. I'm with Pivot North Architecture. I am representing the owner. We are located at 116 South 6th Street here in Boise.
Thank you. It looks like we're getting something up
yeah.
on the screen for you.
Yeah, we've prepared a presentation to coincide with our statement here today. It's a bit of a, it is a bit of a reiteration of what Richard has covered here, but we'd like to kind of put it in our own words. Here we have on this cover sheet here, we have the 1920s version of the Masonic Temple as it was completed by Wayland and Fennell. This is an expansion of the previously constructed Masonic Temple at this site, which was a smaller version that was completed or designed by Ross Carty and completed in 1907. So this expansion was kind of quickly preceded the original building and kind of essentially encapsulates the original building that we see here today. And like Richard stated, we've got commercial space on the ground floor, and the upper floor was used for gathering space for the various Masonic organizations that have occupied this building over the years. And on the ground floor, we also had a car dealership off of Bannock Street. Towards the west end of the building, we had there was an existing ramp down into the basement for automobile repair and maintenance. And we'll see in proceeding or in the next slides kind of what that looks like today. Here's just site context. We're in the west end of downtown Boise. This is located in the original City of Boise town site and is currently under consideration for a historic district. The Masonic Temple is also, as Richard stated, is the 33rd historic landmark, designated landmark of the City of Boise. Moving into the site, we're here at the corner of West Bannock and North 10th Street. And moving on to context, we have the Empire Building just across the alley to the south, and then pictured at the top left. And then on the top right, we have the formerly known old C.C. Anderson building. It is now the Athlos Academy and recently received a renovation. And then directly across the street from the Masonic Temple, we have the Turtlot building, and kitty corner to that, the Banner Bank high rise. Directly north to that, we have the across Bannock Street from the Empire Building, we have the Hyatt Place as well. So that kind of gives you a sense of this neighborhood. There's several significant buildings in this area, not all of them considered historic landmarks, but several that are contributing to this part of town. Here we have the 10th Street elevation of the Masonic Temple. We can see some of the various facades that have been added on over the years. We see to the left, there's kind of a stucco covered panels that cover up the original clear story windows. And below that, we have a CMU veneer that's been painted, kind of a tan color to match the stucco above. And then directly to the right of that, we see that there is kind of a tan brick that outlines the old coin shop there. And then again, that stucco paneling. As we move north, there's a little less inconsistency on the ground level, and the upper level kind of retains all of its original features. And then you can see towards the right there, we have the original entry to the old, the basement for car repairs and maintenance. And that is the back entrance to the commercial spaces on the ground floor, and also the egress stair that serves the second floor. And that is covered in a stucco panel and a painted plywood up above. And then to the far right, where we have the existing paint and sip tenant, there is kind of an ephes detailing outlining the existing entrance and window. Here's just a couple of shots of kind of the existing condition of the ground floor, which is really has experienced the most transformation over time. That's kind of inconsistent with the original design. And then moving on, we Pivot North Architecture worked on recently the Elks Lodge in Twin Falls. It's located off of Shoshone Street here. Here we see the building prior to renovation and restoration of this building. You can see it's similar in shape and size and has some of the same inconsistencies at the ground level. Jumping forward, this is the building after renovation. You can see we replaced the windows with aluminum clad wood windows to kind of match the sight lines that would be appropriate to its historic character. This building won an AIA Honor Award for historic preservation and adaptive reuse. And we also worked closely with the State Historical Society for the rehabilitation tax credits. So we intend to use that experience here. Here's just another elevation of that, looking at it across Shoshone Street in Twin Falls. We intend to use that experience to kind of take that momentum and apply it to the Masonic Temple here in Boise. And with that, we'll kind of jump back up here and look at this building from the corner of 10th and Bannock. And we kind of get a sense of its two primary facades that are public facing. And then the next slide here is the proposed renovation of the upper floor and restoration of the ground floor elements to attempt to put it back to its original historic character. And moving into the floor plans, just to kind of leapfrog on what Richard was saying, we've kind of got existing tenants on the ground floor here with at the center of the building highlighted in yellow, we have the main grand stairway up to the second floor with elevator access as well. There's also a stair accessing the basement below. And then the yellow off of Bannock Street there is just a representation of the egress stair out to Bannock Street. And we're kind of proposing pulling those off of the entry or the stair and then the back entry to the tenant spaces off of Bannock. We're proposing kind of pulling those back and infilling with new window and doors. On the second floor, as Richard had noted, it was previously the gathering space for the various Masonic organizations that have occupied the building over the years. They've sold the building and moved to a new location. And so this building is kind of at a point where it's entering into a new era here. And we're proposing on the second floor apartments with lofts, as Richard has stated, and there's approximately 10 apartment units with patios facing both the alley to the south and Bannock Street to the north. And to do this, we are proposing removing some of the all of the blind brick windows off of Bannock and replacing with a decorative metal railing to minimize impact to the existing facade and making it replaceable and adaptable for future use. If in the future, another 100 years down the road, this building changes use. With that said, the main concept driving this patio is the design challenge of trying to preserve the facade and the historic character of this historic landmark, while also providing natural light deep into these spaces and code required ventilation to the units. So with that said, we've proposed the most minimal or minimally impactive solution to add that decorative metal railing. And then moving into this next slide, we have the just the plans showing the lofts as they relate to the first floor or the ground level of the apartments. Moving into this slide, we have the elevations. Richard touched on this. We are proposing replacing existing windows on the ground floor, adding back those clear story windows, replacing windows on the second floor off of 10th Street here, as pictured on the bottom, and then cleaning up and doing any repair to the masonry that's necessary. Some of this is exploratory. We're currently assuming that the masonry behind the various facades that march around the ground floor are still intact. And so that portion will be exploratory, but we intend to repair and put it back to as close to its historic character as possible. Just to jump back, the west facing facade is the party wall that faces the parking lot adjacent. We at this time do not propose any modifications to that facade. On this next slide here, we see the south facade. This is the alley facing the Empire Building. We're proposing on the ground floor, replacing windows with the same aluminum clad wood windows. And then on the upper floor, adding in those, or removing windows and adding in, leaving them open and adding in the decorative metal railing. On the bottom floor, we see the Bannock Street elevation, the same ground floor modifications. And then on the upper floor, we're proposing replacing the blind brick windows with a decorative metal railing. And then in this slide, you see just kind of our basic material palette where the upper photos kind of indicate the elements that we propose keeping intact, just kind of typical existing sandstone and the burgundy brick that you see here, and then the existing ephes that frames those openings around the paint and sip windows, the door and windows, just because we're not totally certain what's behind those and what's still intact. On the bottom photos, we have kind of proposed fabric awnings, retractable awnings. We did in our application note they were white, but we would prefer that they're black to match the window frames and the painted decorative metal railing. And just to the right of the awnings, you see the example from Twin Falls of the aluminum clad wood windows that we're proposing to install here at this Masonic temple. And to the right of that is just an example of the patterning of that decorative metal railing. Next slide is just a touch base on, or dive into the windows themselves. We're proposing basis of design Pella Reserve windows on this project. These have an integral divided light that kind of gives that shadow and reveal that you would see on a historic window. These also have putty profiles to match kind of the old putty set windows. And then through style construction with butt joinery. To the right of that, you see again an example of the Twin Falls Elks Lodge on the upper photo shows the upper windows that we would intend to match, minus the arched window above. And then below, the same clear story and storefront. Here are a couple of typical details. These are just mainly not to show what we're doing to the masonry, but to show the profile of the window in cross section. You can get a sense of the canted angle that simulates the putty pack. On this next slide is just a brief iteration of the loft concept and the balcony. You can see on the top left, we're proposing that light well where we would potentially install either a skylight or a roof opening to draw light down, as well as getting light through opening up the blind brick windows to throw light deep into this space to make it a pleasant place to live. These spaces, the existing floor to ceiling height is about 20 feet. And then these units will be from the inside of exterior wall to the inside of the wall adjacent to the corridor are about 40 to 50 feet deep. So we're trying to get light as deep into this space as we can. And so on the bottom left, you kind of see the typical patterning. We looked around Boise to see particular patterns that showed up. We noticed out at the Veterans Hospital, you'll see some of this patterning on some of the porches and balconies that they have out there. This pattern also appears on some of the attic vents that you would see just below the cornices of some buildings, particularly on the Empire Building just to the south of this. And then to the right, you just see the contrast between the existing blind brick window and then just an image of what that would look like removed and replaced with the decorative metal railing. And to kind of close out here, we'll jump back to the 10th Street elevation. This kind of just shows the main entry and what this building would look like with the proposed modifications that we are seeking certificate of appropriateness here today. And just to close out the last rendering from Bannock Street. And with that, that is all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, a couple of questions. One, just to clarify, you are not proposing any modifications to the parapet height.
No modifications to the parapet height. Yep, that would remain as is. The only modifications to the facade would be removing and replacing clear story windows at the base, and then removal of that blind brick on the second floor.
Great.
And replacement of windows.
Okay, appreciate that. And then to the windows, you had mentioned integral divided light.
Yes.
And as opposed to applied divided light, or are these muntins that are sandwiched in between planes of glass?
Yes, the muntins would sandwich the glass. They'd have a thermal spacer between them.
So they would project out from the glass.
Project out a little from the glass.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, to give a little shadow and reveal.
Okay,
Yep.
very good. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you. The transoms, has there been some exploration to see if the original transoms are still underneath? We see that a lot in downtowns, that they were stuccoed over, but underneath they're still there.
We don't know of all of them. I believe in some instances they're not, but we don't know for certain whether or not any of those are all still intact. But we do, some of them we know just from these existing images we have that they're not, but to what extent they still exist, we don't know.
Would there be an opportunity, if they still exist, to actually rehab those original windows?
I think there is the possibility. We could run into issues if there's only one or two, and then trying to match back. That would be the one thing that I would say might not turn out as well. It'd be more difficult to match back. But I think there is certainly the possibility, if there's a substantial number of these still intact, we could explore that.
Okay. My next question is that in the historic photo, it looks like the original windows were 6/1 windows on the second floor, and you're proposing 1/1 windows. Is there an opportunity to have a more accurate window with a 6/1?
There is the potential for that, yes.
And then just in general, I do have an issue with opening up the Masonic Hall, the blind windows. They've always have been that way. It's not like the Twin Falls, which was actually designed with windows. And it really creates a false sense of history. You don't read it as much of a Masonic temple anymore when you're opening up that space.
Mhm.
And it's really the expression of the building is having those windows closed. This actually would have probably been a great music venue for tree fort or something to have that building up there versus opening it up to opening up those spaces. And then the other thing that I really don't like, and I don't know if there's a better design solution. I'm sure you've explored this, but the railings for the balconies, they're really distracting to the overall design. So have you explored other options that are not so busy?
We have, but I don't, is there anything specific in that you are referencing, like a precedent?
I don't know. You're the
Yeah,
architect. So
Yeah, this was the design that we kind of noticed was typical of some of the balconies around town.
I think something less distracting would be, it just seems like
It's like
really
simpler, like
Yeah.
maybe just vertical pickets or.
Yeah,
I mean,
or yeah, I don't even know about vertical pickets, just something, yeah, something much more simple. I don't even know if the glass would be appropriate, just to kind of, so you see through.
Yeah, we looked at glass. It's difficult to find an aluminum clad wood window that can be applied in an exterior application. So that was one of the driving factors towards just opening up the blind brick.
Okay, well, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, if I may, not so much a question, but I have to say, I have been having anxiety about this building and what it's going to become. And I am so at ease. I do have a couple of things here or there that are just, we can talk about later, but wonderful presentation. And this is
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Otter.
I really like what you've done here, and I appreciate you putting in all the hard work to come up with a way to maintain the facade as much as possible, but also make it a usable space that will work in downtown.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, you can take a seat.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. At this point, do we have a representative from the Neighborhood Association present and wanting to testify on this item? It's in the downtown Boise area. Online? No? Okay. So moving on, I don't have anybody on my sign-up sheet. Is there anybody present that's wishing to testify on this item? Nobody online? Okay, so with that, we can move to the rebuttal if you have anything else to say, applicant. Okay, great, thank you. So we'll close the hearing and we'll have some discussion and a motion, hopefully. If anybody wants to kick us off.
I'd like to kick us off.
Malloy?
I'd like to add conditions to the overall project, other than Richard's already, the conditions he's already included. I'd like to see the 6/1 windows that were originally on the building. I'd like to see a little bit less distracting railing, something more simplified. And then I would like to stipulate that if the original transoms are underneath, that they be retained and rehabilitated by the standards.
Can you be any more specific on less distracting? I think we need to give some guideline like that.
Yeah. So right now, let me see. Let me look at the design again.
Madam Chair, while we look for that, can I also provide some more thoughts?
Sure.
I also feel rather affected by the loss of the closed windows. And I would really like to see some memorialization efforts of what that looked like, whether it's some signage or something, just to give a little bit more context of what is no longer there. So if we could also add a condition requesting some historic memorialization to the site, I would feel much better about that. And also, I think Mr. Farwell mentioned the preference for the fabric retractable awnings being black. I do think that that's a better design choice. And I would be happy with that. I don't know if that needs to be added as a condition, but
you are keeping the lettering, the Masonic Temple lettering above the door. So we have a nod there, but you're thinking a plaque or something.
yeah, I'm thinking something, even if it's, I know how some people feel about signage, but I do think that it provides a lot of enrichment to the community who isn't necessarily aware of what was there or down the road. Something similar to, a little infographic, if you will, out front that kind of states some brief history about what the building is, the fact that it has landmark status, and what was there that has now been an adaptive reuse into housing.
Okay. Interpretive signage.
Yeah.
I think maybe instead of this like crosshatch design that you're proposing, maybe emulating the diamond shaped in there, bringing that straight down into the design. You think that could be done? Yeah. Yeah, just like a simple, if it's 3 of those.
Yeah, if you can come step up to the microphone and give your name and address, just so we have it for the record.
John King with Pivot North Architecture as well, 306 North Mobley. Yes, we had a lot of discussion in the office about what is appropriate, what should it look like. We started off very simple picket, try to make it. And then we said, let's look around town and what is of the era and what do we start to see? So like Drew mentioned, looking at, the VA, looking at the Empire Building, looking at that. And then we started to change our mind and say, maybe this is more appropriate. So we're absolutely open to restudying that and working with staff. And because we want it to look right as well. It's going to be black and those openings are fairly dark, so you really won't get much light through it. So but yeah, we're more than happy to look at that again because, we want to make sure it's right as well.
And Madam Chair, to the applicant's point, there are, kind of maximum sizes of, the pickets have to be a certain closeness together,
right?
Or density, so that for safety purposes as well. So, it's kind of finding that balance between it's going to have a certain level of busyness just because it needs to function as a safety device, but not overly celebrating itself. And I'm working with staff to find that. I think is
absolutely perfect. I was just hoping we could give like a couple guidelines rather than just do better. Okay. Any other comments, or are we ready to make a motion?
I think I'm ready. I can attempt to make this motion. Hopefully remember everything. Okay, I move to approve DRH 23-0181 with staff's recommendations and conditions of approval, as well with the following conditions of approval. That on the second story, they use 6/1 windows, the Pella Reserve you're using, correct? Yeah, so same style windows, but 6/1 instead of 1/1. That the awnings be black, that the metal railings for the balcony have a more simplified design as like maybe a diamond. You'll work with staff to on that stipulation. And then oh yeah. As well as if the original transoms over the storefronts are intact, that they be rehabilitated and restored. And then finally, interpretive signage that will be developed by an SOI qualified historian and use a professional graphic designer to discuss the history of the Masonic Temple, the dealership on the first floor, and the Boise landmark status.
I will second.
All right. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Abstain?
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 abstain. Motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item number 6, DRH 23-00224. This is at 1602 North 13th Street, certificate of appropriateness to enclose an existing patio and construct a new addition on an existing commercial building in a neighborhood commercial with historic design review overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
This structure is located in Hyde Park. It is a contributing structure to the Hyde Park Historic District. Here's the site location to give you a sense of its location. And the site plan. Here's the first floor plan. You'll see in this area is the area where the seating will be. And back here is just some additional, like basically storage space. It's also being proposed in this application. Here are the elevations of what's being proposed. It's going to have accordion style windows that when fully open will allow for a visual see-through where you can still experience the visual effect of the historic garage doors that are going to remain and the garage door openings. Here are some perspective drawings to give you a sense of what the modification will look like. And as I say, the applicant is proposing to enclose the existing opening patio space and construct this new addition, as well as the walk-in cooler at the very rear. The enclosed patio space, accordion doors will have it open to outside air most of the time, I should say, or quite often. And there is already fully open seating area in the same location. So it's not like an increase or decrease of seating. It's just a way of enclosing it to make it a more of a 3-season opportunity, at least. The design guidelines state that once you construct new additions so that there's the least possible loss to historic fabric and so that character defining features are not damaged, destroyed, or obscured. This proposed addition to the rear for the cooler is along a currently blank wall and has no real visual impact at all. It's only seen from an alley. The enclosed seating area will have minimal impact to a secondary elevation, and the existing garage door openings, as I described before, on the sidewall will be retained. And the Secretary of the Interior states that additions need to be compatible with the historic building and have minimal impact to the character defining features and are reversible. And in this case, if this addition were removed, it would be fully reversible and the garage doors and door openings will still be there. So with all of that, the staff does recommend approval and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff on this project?
I have a question for Richard. So this is a historic gas station, service station. Normally, when we have a project like this, we'd want to see the garage doors visible and not obscured by other glass to appropriately read the building. I have concerns that with the approval of this application, you're not going to be able to read the building as a historic gas station as much. Did you take that into consideration?
Yes, I did to a degree. And our feeling was that the fact that most of the time, the public, this is a public building and there's a public opportunity to come in. And you will, once you're in, for sure, you will see that, yeah, okay, there's the gas station doors. This was historically a gas station. So in one way, it is accomplished by that fact. This is not like a private residence where something is being sealed up and there's no way to ever see those garage doors again. They're there. The openings will be there and they'll be part of the experience, at least internally at all times of the year. And in the seasons when those accordion doors or windows or openings, however we wish to call them, are open, then it'll be a pass through visually into open air, and you can see it from the sidewalk just walking down the street. You look through the open accordion windows, boom, behind you, through the seating, you will still be able to see that there were garage doors there. So it's everybody, most of the year can see that, and for the entire year, if you're a patron, certainly it's there. They're still there. They're not removing those historical elements. And I do take your point too. It is somewhat covering it up, but we felt that the way the usual openness of the space does allow the transparency to show those garage doors through.
Richard, I have a question as well. Once you enclose the space, don't the garage doors become interior to the building and then you can change them however you want?
That would typically be the case. I'm not sure. Can we do that? Can we condition? We're not sure quite yet if it could be conditioned. That there be a caveat that those always remain, at least the openings. I'm not sure that those garage doors, they look like to me, they weren't, of course, the original garage doors, but that at least the openings be retained and that there be garage doors kept there, and that can potentially be conditioned that those not be filled in.
Sorry, Madam Chair, another question for staff. We haven't historically, though, conditioned anything interior to a building, correct?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's usually not the case. So
Are we going down a slippery slope?
yeah.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Montoto.
Richard, I think I know the answer, but if you could just clarify on the record, could you speak to how this change would impact the contributing status of this property or could potentially down the road?
I suppose it could have an impact on that status. Our opinion was that since those interior, the garage doors and openings would be retained in what they were proposing, as we see from these drawings, those openings are still there. It's part of the function and the flow of the space to connect the main internal dining space to this indoor-outdoor space. That is basically what they're proposing as an indoor-outdoor space. You know, when open, it's outdoors almost, and it's only indoors when it's closed. So I think that enough of the material is going to be retained as per proposed, and the reversibility of this modification. If they remove this, there'll be just minimal, if any, scarring from where these only 2 points of intersection are happening with the historic building. So it, as the Secretary Standard said, the reversibility is key. This has reversibility. And if reverted back to its previous situation, it would still read just like it did before. So staff kind of feels that it probably doesn't impact the status of this particular structure.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for staff? No? All right, hearing none. Is the applicant present? You can step forward and state your name and address. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Ian Schuring. I'm with Lombard Conrad Architects, 472 West Washington Street, Boise.
Thank you.
We have, I think it's important that we give a little bit of history as to how we got to this point tonight. This historical review is just a component of a broader application, which is a variance application. And what we're looking for is a variance that addresses the encroachment into a setback onto Eastman Street. And Richard, could you bring up our site plan if that's possible? So this would be an administrative review as opposed to a full-blown variance application. We'll get into why it's going to be administrative as opposed to full-blown. But essentially, we looked at this building from a variance standpoint. You have to prove a hardship, right? And we felt there were two different hardships with this. What's driving it really is a financial hardship, and I'll let the owner address that. And then the other hardship was, well, if we were going to add on to this building, potentially, what were our options? We had two options. We could add on to the 13th Street side, or we could add on to the Eastman side. As Commissioner Malloy stated, this was a gas station at some point. And with that, there were always problems with underground tanks. We reached out to the fire department, who currently tracks those, and their tracking or their current history that they have, these tanks predate that, so they don't have a record of it. But what we do know from the owner is that there are underground tanks that are on the 13th Street side. And while we could do an addition on the 13th Street side, which amounted to about 650 square feet, the presence of those tanks obviously created some problems for us. And in chatting with Mike Bisagno at the fire department, we determined that while they didn't have record of that, but the owner did have record of it, we would probably not want to go there. So that was the construction hardship from an architectural standpoint. Then we analyzed, well, how much could we add on if we added on to the south side of the street, or south side of the building, which is on Eastman Street. And that amounted to about 300 square feet. An administrative variance application allows you to encroach into a 10-foot setback, which is what we have here. Anything beyond a 35% encroachment requires a full-blown variance application. For a couple of reasons, we didn't want to go there because due to the nature and location, we just didn't feel that it was appropriate. Secondly, we didn't want to encroach all the way up to the sidewalk. We just felt it was overbearing from a pedestrian standpoint. It actually kind of played into our hands a little bit as well, because we feel like the historic elevation of this building is really on the corner of 13th and Eastman. It's a hub. It's where a bunch of pedestrian vehicle intersection happens. It created potentially vision triangle issues, and we felt that the addition onto the Eastman Street side was more appropriate. So that's what we are applying for here. That's where you'll see the addition to the building. And coincidentally, that including that 35% encroachment into the 10-foot setback, we're almost exactly at the square footage that we're legally allowed to add if we were conforming on 13th Street side. So we felt that we weren't really asking for anything more than what we wanted to do. But given the hardship from a constructability standpoint and those tanks in the ground, it made sense that that's the appropriate place to do it. And we're really getting the same square footage as we would be eligible for anyway. So on that note, we came up with this plan, which shows an encroachment of 3'6" into that 10-foot setback off of Eastman Street. The point about the overhead doors and whether that can be conditioned, we actually don't have a problem if you did want to condition that, because we plan on keeping those doors. That allows versatility of the space. We have the option to open that up on a day-to-day basis, but when we have functions or private events, we have the ability to close it off too. So that works in our favor as well. From a historical standpoint, as Mr. Jarvis pointed out, we do have the ability to remove this at any time. Our current design does not physically attach it to the building. We don't want to get into structural or seismic issues with attaching a new structure to an existing structure. So the thought is that we would hold that off the building. I mean, visually it will look like it's attached, but from a structural standpoint, it will not be attached. And then, yeah, on 13th Street, it was important for us to kind of keep that corner elevation and patio sort of the way it is now. I mean, I've been here for 20 years. Historically, it's always looked like that. We do feel like it's the most prominent facade. And so that's another reason why we opted to go onto the Eastman side. The cooler on the back is within building setbacks. We're not asking for anything there. And it is just to supplement the current cooler or freezer space that is in the building. Initially, we also looked at potentially doing something inside and opening that up. But from a constraint standpoint, from a financial standpoint, it makes sense to just add this portion on as well. The owner is here, can talk to you about the financial constraints or the financial hardships that come with this building. You can see inside, it's pretty chopped up. It really doesn't allow for much seating. And again, just to clarify, we are not adding any seating to this facility. The current bathroom configuration also limits us to the current use and current occupant load. And we've had a couple of comments from people from posting the sign at the location. And those really have to do with some planters that were along the Eastman Street facade that were outside of the railing. The thought was that that was encroaching into the pedestrian width and was sort of a hindrance, where those have subsequently been removed. So that's not an issue anymore. And the other question that came up was obviously additional bike parking, right? Everybody bikes to this place. And then where do we put it? We do have some options. We have our preferred options, which would be on the east side, on the alley side. But we have had a request potentially to put it on the northeast corner. But that would require people bringing bicycles into the patio area. From a hazard standpoint, we don't really like that. But obviously we're open to additional bike parking. Obviously it's needed. Obviously we don't want people locking bikes to the railings like they currently do everywhere in Hyde Park. We're also there. I believe there's a bike lock facility or a chain up area that is within the public right of way on 13th Street. We wouldn't be opposed to adding something, but the city would have to be amenable to that. That's all I have. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to field them.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. The underground tank issue, have you looked at like contacting the state, like ID or DEQ to take out those tanks and use like Brownsfield funds or anything like that?
We have not.
Okay.
Yeah, in chatting with the fire department, I think their recommendation as well. We do know the tanks have been filled with sand. So even if they're corroding, they're not going to collapse, which is kind of important. But no, we haven't reached out to DEQ. And in discussions with the fire department, I think they were amenable to just let sleeping dogs lie.
Okay. That's the only question I have right now.
Right. And
then potentially the owner can talk to the hardship
we had like
financially.
12-ish minutes left if you want to yield your time
Sure.
to the owner.
Yeah.
Great.
Hello, my name
Your
is
name and address, please.
Jacob Black, and I live on 2800 West Hill Road. Was born and raised here in Boise, Idaho. I am the owner of Lost Grove Brewing. I started this business about 6 years ago, and I was extremely excited to have the opportunity to take on this space in this location. This was actually my first job out of college when I moved back to Boise, was at Lucky 13 in this location. So it has been a dream of mine. I grew up in the North End and have visited this space and have had amazing times in the North End my entire life. And so, I'm really excited about this project. And, one thing that this space has always struggled with has been a vibrant space throughout the wintertime. Being able to add this capacity for seating really allows us as a business to continue to employ more people and to provide just a year-round establishment. I'm sure you've all been by this location in the past. And once it becomes winter, it's pretty dormant, and I don't think it adds a lot of it doesn't add a lot of highlights to the North End neighborhood there, to Hyde Park. By us being able to add this, it'll give us another 50 seats, which will put us to about 100 seat capacity. Currently, we seat about 200 with 140 of those seats being outside. So if you imagine the flux of employment and hiring and letting people go on an annual basis, it's a pretty big struggle for businesses to do that. And for us, we really care about our employees. Lost Grove is the only and first B Corp brewery in the state of Idaho. If you're not familiar with a B Corp, I definitely recommend checking them out. But the tagline for a B Corp is business used as a source for good. So we offer full-time benefits to any employees that get over 30 hours working with us. And we pay full healthcare for that. I believe we are definitely one of very few restaurants in this area that do that and provide that. So this will give us an opportunity to continue to employ people and continue to hopefully be a thriving, successful restaurant within this area. So I really hope that you take these into consideration. And then as far as also on the historic piece of the building, I definitely believe the front of this building is really what shows that it was a gas station. We fully intend to continue to use those roll-up doors in the back. I think it just adds character to it. In our current location, we did some restoration within that building as well. Our original location is down in the Lust District, which is going through, urban renewal and development within that space. And I think we really brought that back to kind of its original state. It was the House of Wheels. And we actually removed some of the front windows that were in that building. We uncovered them and we repurposed them to go into our interior space, and we kind of restored the facade of that building. Yes, we put paint up, and it wasn't necessarily a restoration of color or texture from what it was in the past, but it definitely was a restoration of the building itself. And so we really like to be able to utilize these buildings and keep the uniqueness of what they are. So I hope that you allow us to continue to do this. Any questions?
Any questions for the building owner?
I have another question. Have you looked into the federal tax incentives for historic properties?
I have not.
That if it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places, you can have up to 20% back on your changes to the building if they meet the SOI standards.
I don't know if it is in the historic building, but I will double check. Thank you.
Other questions or comments for the applicant? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have the neighborhood association present and wishing to testify on this item?
Sandra Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Madam Chair and committee members, the owners and managers of this project have been contacted multiple times by members of the NINA board and NINA HPC, and they have been extremely cooperative and receptive to our concerns and inquiries, which is a sign of a good neighbor and much appreciated. A vibrant Hyde Park is vital to the neighborhood, and we want to support businesses while preserving the livability and safety in the neighborhood. This is a challenging place. This building is a challenging place to run a business, and we love that they're trying to make it year round. We have 3 comments regarding this project. One, we want to make sure that we preserve sight lines on the alley between 12th and 13th. With the parking lot just directly north of this building, the alley there is almost a secondary street in this area, and we have tons of pedestrian and bike traffic along Eastman that we're concerned about. 2, we would love to see the applicant come with some extra bike parking, and I'm not going to say much more about that because he's already talked about that. And 3, the sidewalk along Eastman is always crowded, and we want to make sure that any plantings, shade structure, or shade trees are permanently on the inside of the property line. Finally, even in a commercial case, we would like to see down-shielded lighting and permeable paving. And we would like to remind all applicants that any changes to materials stated in the agreed upon application need to be approved by the city, and not doing so could result in remediation at the contractor or owner's expense. So.
Thank you. Any questions for the neighborhood association? No? All right, thank you so much. I'm going to go to our sign up sheet. I have Steve Fleming signed up. If you can state your name and address.
I'm Steve Fleming. I live at 1709 North 10th Street, which is just north of Eastman. I was fortunate to buy that contributing property. It'll be 10 years this spring, and I live there. I actually often walk along the north side of Eastman to Hyde Park and actually, it was a pleasure to see the new owners have many very happy customers. And I'm really pleased to see success. And I don't myself want to stand in the way of them growing their business. And I understand the stability of workers is helpful both to the business and the worker. And it's a challenge in that very challenging service industry. So let me put on my glasses. I wanted to, for the record, call out one issue that's not really historic, but important to the neighborhood, which is limited parking in Hyde Park. So as part of that, the 13th Street Pub and Grill and also Perillo, both actually within the past year, 13th Street added a sizable back patio, and Perillo has one as well. I'm not sure when it was added. So those other properties, I think the situation is less historic consideration, but basically there'll be some impact on the neighborhood, which already has some parking issues with year-round versus seasonal flow of customers. So I wanted to just call that out for the record. It's not an immediate concern of mine, but I think it's something where there's also other commercial properties impacted by parking issues. There's a nearby church, also a nearby school, and the school is in a historic building that has had challenges with respect to parking. So I guess I better hurry. The thing I really wanted to call out myself is that the tree history of the property. I'm glad other people noted the gas station historical context. If you look in the agenda handout, page 18, you see two good-sized trees there. And within my memory, there used to be a few tier 1 trees within the ground. The owner and architect already mentioned there were some trees then. Those trees were removed and some trees were in planters on the sidewalk right away, and then that's been fixed. But what I want to do is give this handout, which shows if you continue on Eastman West one more block, what you see are more normal trees. And obviously the configuration is different, but with my 2 seconds, what I'd like to see is 2 trees planted in the standard 4x4 great configuration added to this property with a substantial caliper, and I'd like them to be on the south side. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have this. Can I put out the handout?
You can,
Yeah.
and let the record show exhibit number 1 attached to DRH 23-00224. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I confirm that it was a request for 2 trees planted in 2x4 configuration on the south side? Is that correct?
Mr. Fleming, just a quick question.
Yeah.
It was on the south side that you.
Yeah, on Eastman, basically on Eastman. Right now you can see what long ago was 2 big trees is now just nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's south facing on that
Right.
sidewalk too. It's quite hot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. All right. Anybody else present and wishing to testify, please come forward and state your name and address.
Hello, I'm David Martin. I'm the previous owner of the restaurant and landlord now. The tree issue, well, the trees took up the sidewalk and made me very scary. We had people falling over, crashing. I complained to the Ada County because they own the sidewalks, and they came in, they tore them out. And of course the trees had to go too, because they were, just getting too big for the area. So that's the tree issue. And so I put planters with trees because you got to have shade. What's a patio without shade? I'm sorry, but it gets really hot out there, especially in the middle of summer. So as far as the building, my mom bought it in 1978. It was a Sunray Dairy. Okay, so the front part of it was a dairy and a gas station. They sold beer and milk and eggs, cheese and gas and cigarettes. And they had a little drive-through, you know. And then, so when we bought it, we decided to turn it into something. So we turned it into Lucky 13, an ice cream shop. Okay, but doesn't sell very good in the winter. Okay, so we put a pizza. Okay, and then we had to fight to get beer and wine and all that. But so over the years, it's slowly gotten better and better. The concrete's gone, the trees are gone, but they're working on it. They're trying to get it back up to speed. As I did, I had to replace all the concrete around the building. Did a lot of work over the years trying to bring it up. It's an old building. I'm not sure it's historical. Okay. The gas pumps, we did fill with sand. I watched my brother out there for a week straight, truckload after truckload of sand, filling up those tanks underneath. Okay. You had two options back then. The fire department said you could put in water or you could put in sand. Okay. Well, water is just going to rust them out. They're going to cave in, and so you're going to have a big issue. So he put in sand, or we put in sand. They have been tested by the DEQ. There is no contamination under that property. Okay. So just to let you know that. I think Jake is doing a great job at bringing the property to something that Hyde Park needs. And I'm all for it. So, you know, but I hope you guys would make the right decision on the property too.
How do you feel about trees?
I would love more trees.
Okay.
I'm a tree hugger.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify on this project? Online? No? Okay. With that, then we'll have rebuttal from the applicant or the owner, or whoever would like to take your remaining time.
And to touch on the tree aspect, I also love trees as well. I think everybody does. But we did build, I had two custom built 4x4, 3 feet tall steel planter boxes that are on our property that we have planted two sizable trees. They'll grow to about 15 feet tall with a 15-foot wide berth on them. And so we do have two trees planted on that south side that are on our side of a property so that it won't encroach on any sidewalk or anything along those lines. And so we're excited to see those grow.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
You're good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any questions before we close it? No? Okay, so with that, we'll close it to the public portion, and I'd love to hear some discussion or, yeah, let's start with discussion on this one. Commissioner Malloy.
I guess I'm concerned about how you're going to be able to read the building as a gas station in the future. And I'm concerned about Commissioner Otter's mention of if we make it a permanent interior space, what that means for the garage doors in the future. And that might not be, you know, when you guys are owners, we're thinking long term. So yeah, I'm concerned about how you read the building as a gas station and the fate of the garage doors that could, if they were filled in or they're gotten rid of or enlarged, or anything could affect the contributing status of the property.
Yeah, I am concerned about the garage doors, and I'm wondering if there's a code. I was like trying to look it up quickly online, if there was a code option for making it not an interior structure. Maybe somebody else who spends more time in the actual like zoning code knows, because I don't want to go down a slippery slope of trying to regulate what's interior to businesses. That's not our job. We do facades, we do exteriors, and trying to regulate that the garage doors are there is not something I'm comfortable with long-term. So I'm wondering if there's a structural code way to make this exterior patio work without it being a technical creating an interior. So I'm open to suggestions on that. I'm kind of looking at staff, wondering if there's some technical part of the code we can use.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Otter, I'm not sure how helpful this will be, and maybe Commissioner Parks could weigh in his experience as an architect, but I think if it wasn't conditioned space, we wouldn't consider it interior. I think it's pretty clear that it's referenced in the state enabling code that the commission cannot consider interior arrangements. That specific language is in state code. So if this is interior, it is off limits to your conditions and requirements. But again, if it's not conditioned space, I think there may be some latitude there to not call it interior, but I don't know.
Well, and Madam Chair, I was wondering in that same vein, my mind goes to something more like a screened in porch. You know, it is a sort of those sort of spaces that float in between indoor and outdoor spaces. It is not a fully enclosed, conditioned at all times of the year sort of space. It is a space that is designed to be open. It is still, the primary facade is still visible through the, you know, whether it's through the screen or through the accordion glass partition, whatever that might be. Legally speaking, I'm not sure, and we didn't ask the applicant if or how they intend to condition the space, but perhaps that's a worthwhile question to ask.
Would you like me to reopen it so that we can ask the applicant? Okay.
That seems like a valuable.
We have more questions. Your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Ian Shearing, Lombard Conrad Architects, 472 West Washington Street, Boise, Idaho.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, Commissioner Parks, we initially started this out as a 3-season enclosure where heat could be supplemented through, you know, like outdoor gas patio, heaters and things like that. Subsequently, we have kind of thought about making it a year-round enclosure. So the questions are pertinent, and obviously conversation needs to ensue, right? So I don't want to hamstring us and say we're not going to do it, because that's still a possibility. So if there are going to be conditions that go along with fully enclosing and conditioning that space, that is something we should talk about.
Does that answer? You have more?
And as a caveat to that, I think maybe it would be helpful if we could say, look, if we're going to fully enclose this and condition the space, these are the conditions associated with that. If we're going to have it as a three-season enclosure, those conditions fall away, and then that allows us, it gives us a framework in which to make that decision.
Because I think where the commission may be going is if it is a fully enclosed 4-season conditioned space, we lose control over the long-term historic concept that this was a gas station, and we have no control over whether a future owner decides to completely rearrange what is now the interior of the building.
Yeah, and
is that fair?
And I get that, and I don't know enough about your process to really get into the nitty-gritty of it, but like we said, we would be more than happy to have that as a condition of approval, and that would lapse upon termination of the lease or the selling of the building to a different person. And I don't know legally how that works, but
So
I mean,
legally, we don't have any control over the interior, and that's a state statute. That's not at the city level. So we can't do anything about that. The state says historic preservation, you don't touch the inside. So if we make this a 4-season enclosure, that becomes inside.
okay.
And so I think we're trying to think through and be creative. How do we keep this counting as like an exterior wall?
I
Right?
think we have to condition it as a 3-season enclosure, and then the garage doors would continue to be under this committee's purview.
If we condition it as a 3-season enclosure, does that change the design?
No.
Okay. You disagree, Commissioner Parks.
Or maybe.
Well, it doesn't change the visible design, except that it might impact their functionality or usability of it, and hoping to use it all year round. Or if they do use it all year round, you know, in that 4th season, how do you heat and cool the space, or I guess heating the space for the
Right.
season that it would be enclosed, right?
And air exchanges and things like that.
Right.
Yep.
Meaning that in the summer months, it's probably not going to be as delightfully cool as an inside space, but
Right.
it is still a functional space that
So I'm like looking at the windows that you have picked and your site design. Is this something that you're heating and cooling beyond? Like, is it going to be air conditioned in the summer? Is it going to be heated via the building in the
Well-
winter, or is it gas heaters? Like, what does that look like?
Well, so I think what really drives that is not so much whether it's heated or cooled, but the air exchanges, the required air exchanges per the mechanical code. So we could heat or cool it, but if we're not ventilating that space, that becomes a problem. So if we were to, if it's a 3-season, it opens up and it closes, and you get those exchanges through the operability of those partition or accordion windows. If you do enclose it, yes, we would have to condition that space. We would have to, just by pure nature of having to do the required air exchanges, we would have to do that.
Okay. If we condition this as a 3-season enclosure, I mean, is there a way you can use it in the winter?
Legally, we'd have to explore that
Can I
again.
come
It's
have a
the
beer in the winter?
Yeah, you can if you sit next to an open window. No, I think again the caveat is just getting the required air changes in there. It is an A occupancy, which require it has substantially more air change requirements than just say an office building.
Right.
We'd have to explore that. I'm not sure what our options would be, but I would think we would have to condition it at least to some extent to get those air changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I have a question now that we've looked at design again. That footer on the bottom, do you need that footer on the bottom, or can you do full glass?
I think we need it. Those windows have been purchased, but I think that the windows themselves, are they 8 feet high? So theoretically, yeah, we could do that. We could take that glass down to the bottom and have it, have a threshold there of some sort. Right.
Okay.
And from a durability standpoint, it's nice to have something that nobody's going to kick or ride their bike into or bang a chair on or something.
How high is that little bottom barrier?
It's about 2 feet high.
About 2 feet high.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's not like a half wall even. It's right. Yeah, I feel like even my kid on a strider can see in. Okay, other questions or comments before we close the public portion? If you have them, let's ask them. No? Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, now we'll close it, and I'm looking for a motion or more discussion.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I'm concerned. I think we should potentially condition it as a 3-season patio so that otherwise, I think we might lose control over what potentially, in 40 years, somebody might do to it. Hopefully you guys are around for a long time. But I think we should condition as a 3-season patio.
I agree with Commissioner Malloy. I was going to suggest that I would make a motion to approve DRH 23-00224 with the staff's condition as well as the condition of a 3-season patio.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving on to agenda item number 7, DRH 23-00225. This is at 1423 West Franklin Street, certificate of appropriateness to construct a new single-family resident and detached garage with an ADU above on a property in a multifamily residential with historic design review overlay. Staff, can we please get the report?
This is located in the Hayes Street Historic District. It is not applicable, so to speak, as a classification being contributing or non-contributing. It is currently the parking space beside an existing historic house that has been commercial and I think is going back to house or has gone back to residential. So it's in a unique location. So the parcel will be a division of an existing parcel for that parking lot space that has, I mean, asphalt parking lots are not contributing, but they're not officially not contributing. Here's the site to give you the context. There's the house to the left with the red terracotta mission tile roof. And to the right of that is that parking lot area where the new construction will be built. And there historically would have been a parcel there, a property there. That was at some point in history raised and to make way for the parking lot. So they're proposing to build back into that space. And here are the floor plans for what's being proposed. It's a single family residence with a rear garage ADU. Here are the elevations proposed. And the elevations have been slightly revised. The applicant will be here presenting, and in their presentation, they'll have these revised drawings. These are minimal changes, just a few dropping of the water table elements and a few other things to strengthen the design. Elevations of the garage ADU. The site context with lots of photos to give you an indication of what is around this property. Various heights. And our analysis is that the house to the east is 32 feet to the peak, which is just 2 inches shorter. The house to the east of that is a 2.5 story tall and wide structure. And the house across the street is 2 stories, as are many others in the area. The house that I mentioned before with the mission tile is a 1 story that is 19 feet 7. And there are also other 1 stories in the vicinity. However, there are sufficiently a number of adjacent and nearby 2-story houses that are more massive, especially as width goes. The houses adjacent are substantially wider than this one. So we feel that this 2-story house is acceptable given the context of the area. And the roof form and the massing and material used in the construction are all appropriate materials and congruous with neighboring historic property material palettes. Standard 9 says that new construction should be compatible with all these things: scale, proportion, massing, so you can protect the integrity of the property and its environment. As demonstrated above, this proposed construction is of a compatible size, scale, and proportion and massing, and therefore we feel it meets the standards for an infill. With that, staff recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? No, thank you. All right, is the applicant present? Nice. Please step forward and state your name and address. And you have 20 minutes.
Name is Jade Manabat. I'm from Pivot North, representing the owner. And we are proposing a project which is a 2-story with a basement and a detached garage with an ADU on the 2nd floor. And we are located at the intersection of Franklin and 15th Street. A few more exhibits on the next few slides would show where we are in terms of vicinity and how we are positioned in the outskirts of the Hayes Historic District and how the surrounding neighboring blocks of architecture quickly transitions to different scale and building types. A few more. You see on the west is Albertsons. To the east is a school. And a few more of the surrounding building context. Existing condition right now is paved parking, and to the east demonstrates the scale of the neighboring 2-story structure. And a few more of the surrounding context. rear alley directly across from the property. Landscape plan shows the intent of the landscaping we are proposing and the existing landscape to remain. Our lot coverage with the required 35% max, we are at 33% that we are providing. For the 40% minimum open space, we are providing 49%. For the 25% max impervious, we are at 18%. So there's a few more information in there if anyone would like to look into those. We've worked with staff on those. Next few slides would be the floor plans. First floor with the living spaces and two-car garage detached. Second floor with the bedrooms and the ADU above the detached garage and the basement. And this shows how the two massing relate to each other with the ADU garage at the back of the primary residence, with demonstrating its smaller scale facing the rear alley. A few more notes on the proposed materials of the elevations and how the basement plays into the architecture. A few more elevations of the garage ADU. And some of the materials in our palettes. The left shows the colors that we are proposing in the window types. Some of the ceiling finishes in the front porch, sandstone roof, and the lower front standing seam metal roof that we are proposing. And that'll be it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple questions. I guess I'm full of questions tonight. Was there any other way that you could break up the massing on the second floor? It's sort of, you did a good job at the front, but the back is still really kind of bulky. And also there's a lot of that white space that's a kind of a void. Is there any way to improve that? Maybe Jeff, if you have any ideas, put you on the spot.
Madam Chair, I guess to that point, I think the one thing that jumps out at me, especially on the street facing side, is the white portion and that window that sits right at the corner. The window placement is a little bit off-putting, and as it balances with the rest of the white, maybe that's, Commissioner Malloy, is that maybe what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I think so. There's just something off right there.
Yeah, we can take a look at how to break those up, maybe check and see what kind of architecture elements we can put on those and work with the staff.
Yeah, like, I don't know, could you add a window maybe there next to that one, or would that be too much, or just the placement?
I mean, it might be too much. It's probably at the edge, the front porch is sloping upward. And if you slide that window to the left, then the sill of the window is going to interfere with the slope of the porch. So I see why it is where it is, but it does leave a lot of extra white. It's a little bit out of character for the form space proportion of a historic property or in a district.
I think if you look at the designs for the second floor, that's the primary bedroom, and they're trying to make space for a big bed to go there. I wonder if there's like a design element that could break up that space, like a star or something, like one of those things that kind of people do on their houses, but like that would break it up, because I don't know that you can get, like, it would be weird to have like a high window there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could be improved because it is like a little bit awkward in that space. And then my second question is, was there any other choices for color besides peppercorn and green, black? Is there something other than gray?
We can take a look at those and check and see with the owner.
Okay. I think everything is being gray right now and it doesn't, historically, it wasn't a popular color within the historic district. So some other thought to that color would be great. Thank you.
Other questions?
Madam Chair, I had a question about the sandstone.
Okay.
Is that an actual stone or is that an applied?
It will be a natural stone, but it will be a veneer is what we were thinking.
Okay, very good. Thank you. But a natural stone.
Yes,
Very good.
yes,
Thank you.
correct.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is the neighborhood association here and wanting to testify on this project?
Sandra Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Madam Chairwoman and Commission, we are pleased that the design team has been very responsive to our inquiries, the concerns of neighbors, and the city team's concern about height. They showed compromise with neighbors regarding the porch and the house front plane. We thought the plans on this project were very readable and appreciated the lot coverage sheet. Our understanding is that a garage ADU over 22 feet requires a 15-foot rear setback or setback variance. If that's the case, we would like to see those variance requirements mentioned in the staff report in the future. We want to make sure that when HPC approves a project, that there is acknowledgement that a variance has been needed or obtained. We like the inclusion of the shade trees and request down-shielded lighting and permeable paving. We recommend approval for this project, and we would like to remind all applicants that any change in the materials stated in the agreed upon application need to be approved by the city. Not doing so could result in remediation at the contractor or homeowner's expense.
Thank you. Any questions for the neighborhood association? No? All right. We do not have anyone signed up. Is there anyone present wishing to comment on this project? Anybody online? No? Okay, so hearing none, applicant, you have time to rebut if you would like. Okay, great. With that, we'll close the hearing and render a decision. So discussion or?
I think I'd like to add a stipulation just to work on that front design element with staff to figure out something to break up that space.
Okay. Also, you mentioned color. Are there some like example colors that you would recommend they look into?
I'm not picky other than not gray.
What was
not
popular?
black. Blues, whites, yellows, greens,
Okay,
color.
hopefully that's helpful. Some sort of color. Excellent. All right. Any other comments or?
Madam Chair, excuse me if I may. I just want to commend the architect on this design. There's a lot that you have managed to fit into this property and still managed to stay within our 35% lot coverage. And I think that that is a testament and example to anyone and everyone that it can be done. So thank you very much.
And building off that, I love that it's infill. Like, I think that's amazing to see in Boise, and I like that we're housing people instead of cars. Anything else? A motion, please, maybe.
I will move to approve DRH 23-00225 with staff's recommendations, as well as the condition that they work with staff on the front facade.
Do we have a second?
Oh, and that the color not be gray.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, staff, or clerk, please call roll.
Pape,
Abstain.
Maroney,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 abstain, motion carries.
Thank you, and that concludes our meeting tonight.